When making a film, a director or actor's grasp of realism is an essential component of the process. This largely depends on the genre of the film, sure, but it also depends on the boundaries and limitations the filmmakers are willing to push. A science fiction film like Gravity pushes its limits to the full, set in space where the spectacle is the star of the show. Compare this to another science fiction film like Primer, a film about two scientists who accidentally develop a time machine. Everything is set on Earth, in mostly confined spaces, made on the back of an extremely low budget. Gravity is the limit pushed to the maximum, Primer is what can be achieved with the minimum. Star Wars is the former, Under the Skin is the latter. It's not about sticking to the conventions of the genre, it's about how big you want to take things. The same can be said for actors and performers. While you could suggest that the level of subtlety an actor delivers in a performance is once again dependent on the quality of a character or the tone of the film, that's not always the case. I recently watched a scene from the first season of True Detective, starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. In one scene, McConaughey's character, Rust Cole, is interrogating the suspect of a decades-long murder mystery, a case which Cole becomes obsessed with to the point of near insanity. As the interrogation continues, it eventually escalates to the point where Cole grabs the suspect and slams him against the wall, clearly furious that no answers are being given. Now imagine you're an actor reading the script for the scene. You get to the part where Rust slams the suspect against the wall in a fit of rage. How would you play it? Because in my mind, any regular actor analysing this scene would probably be screaming at the top of their lungs, cursing, yelling, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this guy. Because most actors, when they realise that Cole is angry in this moment, suspect that that's exactly how you play this scene, showing every possible sign that you are enraged. But what does McConaughey do? Not a lot, actually. He doesn't swear, he doesn't yell, he keeps his vocal level calm. It's all in the face and his body language. The cursing and yelling have nothing to do with it. McConaughey acknowledges, as a performer, that less is more. It's not about how big you can go. Sometimes, holding back conveys everything it needs to. These, in my opinion, are the most interesting performers. The actors who know exactly what their boundaries are, but who are in control of said boundaries, and decide with every performance how large or small they decide to go with it. Subtlety never hurt anyone, and in my opinion, one of the all-time best actors who embodies this sentiment is Benicio del Toro. Throughout his career, Del Toro has given consistently grounded, natural, raw performances which serve to emphasize his characters on a human level. While sometimes described as a method actor, Del Toro was never quite that to me. While yes, there are tendencies in his craft that apply the Stanislavski system, a good majority of Del Toro's acting technique distances itself when compared to performers who absolutely do use method acting. Method acting is usually applied when an actor is required to give a performance that shifts far beyond how they think or behave as themselves in order to play a character that shows tendencies of psychopathy and or major physical difference. Think Christian Bale in the majority of his roles, the amount of weight he either loses or puts on, how it is crafted and designed to perfectly embody the character, placing himself in their shoes with every little mannerism or choice they make. It's as if Bale read the script, took note of every exact detail, and literally shapeshifted into the character by any means necessary. How Bale manages to apply himself to become his characters is probably the prime example of a method actor, in my opinion anyway. But when comparing this level of extreme method acting to Del Toro, it is evident how different he is from such an intense performer like Christian Bale. If Bale is the perfect example of method, then Del Toro would fall into the category of a much more traditional performer. When I say traditional performer, think Denzel Washington, Anthony Hopkins and Ian McKellen, actors who do no such crazy antics to perfectly embody the character, but simply rely on the natural talent they developed with backgrounds in theatre. But is that really where Del Toro fits in? Because while he definitely isn't a method actor, to call him someone who uses his full emotional range as is performing upon the stage is also not accurate to assume. Del Toro is someone who uses his completely raw, completely natural ability to give performances which best showcase realistic human behaviour. He is not too expressive until he absolutely needs to be. He's not too loud vocally until he absolutely needs to be. Some actors go all the way a little too much, like a Christian Bale, like a Daniel Day-Lewis. But not Del Toro. He only goes all the way when he absolutely needs to. Del Toro, in my mind, lies somewhere in the middle. He is the best example of being somewhere in the middle, because he, as I said in the intro, determines how high or low of a performance he gives. He is in complete control of his boundaries and limitations. Perhaps the most famous example of Del Toro's subtle, human acting can be found in Steven Soderbergh's Traffic, film which won Del Toro the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Del Toro in this film plays Javier Rodriguez, a police officer in Mexico who finds himself entrapped within the country's drug wars. There is a scene that I would like to point out specifically, a scene which in my mind summarizes Del Toro's ability as a performer. Spoiler alert for Traffic, by the way, as well as spoiler alert for every other film I will be mentioning in this section of the video. You have been warned. After threatening to expose the corruption of Mexico's authorities, Javier and his partner on the force, Manolo Sanchez, are kidnapped by the cartel and taken out to the desert where Sanchez is murdered right in front of Javier. As the stakes are escalated to a new level, Del Toro's performance doesn't. Rather than scream in agony at the death of his friend, Del Toro allows his facial expressions to tell the whole story. As he rides back to town, the anguish and anxiety on his face are more than apparent, conveying precisely the emotional impact this entire experience is having on the character. And when understanding the context of the film, giving a performance this subtle makes sense. The character of Javier Rodriguez grew up in Mexico. He's seen things most people out here in Western society can only imagine. Violence, the corruption, the brutality his country has been cursed with has only made him more and more emotionless as time went on. Hence, watching his friend murdered before his very eyes only affects him for a brief period, but eventually he gets over it. Because that's exactly what he's meant to do. That's what his entire nation is meant to do. He's chosen the life of a police officer in a land that truly is lawless. He can't show emotion. He can't show weakness. Del Toro's incredibly subtle yet devastatingly telling performance is completely justified. Now, after I first saw Traffic, I liked it enough as a work of independent cinema, but I knew coming into it that Del Toro had won the Oscar for it, and coming out of it, I couldn't understand why. Because I couldn't understand at the time how subtly layered and nuanced this performance was. The devil was in the detail. Context for both the character and the setting was required to fully grasp what Del Toro was going for here. And looking back, he absolutely deserved the Academy for this performance. Another excellent example of Del Toro's subtlety can be found in Sicario. Perhaps the most iconic film to star Del Toro, the film details a group of task force agents assigned by the US government to take down a Mexican drug cartel. The film, which features a similar setting and themes to Traffic, is directed by Denis Villeneuve and is the first film in a planned trilogy. In perhaps his darkest performance, Del Toro plays Alejandro Gillick, a former Mexican prosecutor turned assassin. The Sicario the film's title refers to. Alejandro is a traumatized and tortured individual whose wife and children were slaughtered by the cartel during his time as a prosecutor. He truly has seen the nature of the cartel in its darkest and most brutal form. Hence, it is very understanding why Alejandro does the things he does throughout the series. This includes sexually torturing a cartel member for information, brutally torturing Ted, a corrupt police officer working for the cartel, threatening the female protagonist Kate into keeping her mouth shut about the immoral things Alejandro did during this expedition, and perhaps the most unforgivable yet still understandable action, killing Alarcon's family in front of him before eventually shooting down Alarcon himself. With this performance, Del Toro takes a very similar approach to how he tackled Javier in Traffic, only this time for a much more sinister character. He has seen his entire family massacred before him. He knows the ruthless nature of the cartel all too well. It makes perfect sense why he shows not a single ounce of emotion throughout the whole thing. While us as an audience got a brief peek into Javier's soul for a moment, there is not a trace of connection we have towards Alejandro. Our feelings towards him as a character are just like the feelings he has deep down. Nothing. A shell. Doesn't matter who he hurts in the process, he'll hurt. Because that is the only thing he can do at this point. One of Del Toro's most over-the-top, bombastically brilliant performances came in Terry Gilliam's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Del Toro plays Dr. Gonzo, crazed lawyer to journalist Raoul Duke, played by Johnny Depp, as the two venture off into Las Vegas to cover a motorcycle race for Duke's publication. During both the journey and their arrival to the titular city, both men essentially consume every drug under the sun, causing them to endure various hallucinations, both whimsical and nightmarish in nature. The drugs cause both men to develop traits of insanity, and things become more and more bizarre as the film continues. This is the performance which truly does contrast Del Toro's entire career as an actor, because his performance as Dr. Gonzo is precisely what audience can expect from Del Toro when he turns it up all the way. He's loud, he's crude, he's disgusting, he's exactly how any man would be when experiencing a long-term trip into drug-fueled insanity. The funniest aspect of his character is that he is on the journey as Raoul Duke's lawyer, indicating that he's meant to provide some voice of reason and logic to Duke's character, but things could not be more opposite. Because if anything, yes, Raoul Duke's behaviour should not be tolerated, but Gonzo's behaviour makes Raoul Duke look like a saint. At one point he is caught in his hotel room after engaging sexually with a minor, and this is when audiences really begin to understand how depraved this character really is. And Del Toro executed it perfectly, because if there is any evidence to argue for Del Toro being a method actor, then this film is it. He gained more than 45 pounds in 9 weeks before filming began, eating 16 donuts a day. He also did extensive research on Oscar Zeta Acosta, the real-life lawyer who inspired Gonzo's character. Both him and Johnny Depp even went so far as to wear the Hawaiian shirts and shape their hair in the way their character inspirations did in real life. Both men went all in on their preparation for this film. And it all paid off, as Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, while it received mixed reviews when it came out, would go on to earn a cult following as time went by. Both Depp and Del Toro's characters are the stuff of legends, and it's largely due to how loud and bombastic both men went when delivering their performances. Now, the second example of when Del Toro gives it large for a performance is actually the one which fascinates me the most, because from the way I see it, this is actually one of the rare instances where Del Toro finds even ground between how subtle he takes it and how over the top he takes it, and that performance can be seen in Sin City. Based on the graphic novel series written and illustrated by Frank Miller, Sin City was adapted for the big screen in 2005, directed by Robert Rodriguez, and features an all-star cast of talented performers who each bring their absolute best for this film. Some standouts amongst the stacked cast include Bruce Willis, Elijah Wood, and perhaps the most iconic performance, Mickey Rourke as the character Marv. But one of the biggest standouts, only second to Mickey Rourke's Marv in my opinion, is Del Toro, who I believe does not get anywhere near the credit he deserves here. Appearing in the second storyline of the film, The Big Fat Kill, Del Toro plays Jackie Boy, a violent and misogynistic alcoholic first seen harassing his girlfriend Shelley. Dwight, the hero of the story and Shelley's new partner, interferes and hence scares off Jackie Boy. One thing leads to another, chaos and violence ensue until it is revealed that Jackie Boy isn't just a drunken idiot, he's actually a very corrupt cop. For the majority of his screen time, Del Toro gives your typical, subtle, withdrawn, yet deeply emotive performance from him. Even when he has one of his hands cut off and is shot in the head, Jackie Boy continues to keep calm under pressure, suggesting how his pure rage and sociopathic nature prevents him from even acknowledging when he is in serious danger. His adrenaline simply won't allow him to fold under pressure. Del Toro makes less of what could have been more with this performance, until one scene. After jeopardizing his situation, Dwight drives Jackie's body to a patch of swamp marshes. As Dwight begins to panic, the pressure building and building, someone suddenly begins to speak. It's Jackie Boy. His eyes widened and crazed, his posture crooked, the base of the gun still lodged into his head. Both Dwight and the audience have no idea whether Jack is still alive, or if this is a hallucination brought on by Dwight's stress and anxieties. And this moment is where Del Toro does a complete switch up on his approach to this character. Jackie Boy slurs his words. His tone of voice shifts from high to low every few seconds. He begins to laugh manically with that crazed, Joker-esque look in his eyes at one point. Del Toro gives it everything he has in this one scene, and it makes complete sense given the context. Because if this is indeed some nightmarish sequence from the depths of Dwight's conscience, then why can't Jackie Boy behave like this? He serves in this moment as the devil on Dwight's shoulder, verbally reducing any hope Dwight may have in escaping the situation unscathed. He did just murder a cop after all, and a heroic cop at that. Thanks to the range Del Toro provides for the character, the big fat kill becomes a tense, unforgiving, ever more depraved look into the world of Sin City, while proving exactly why Del Toro is given the respect as an actor he has to this day. So we've analysed a solid collection of examples which display how incredible of an actor Del Toro really is and always has been. But what can performers learn from him? Well, from how I see things, Benicio del Toro not only represents the actor in full control of how large or small he takes the character, but is also an embodiment of the actor who acts purely off of instinctual nature. The mannerisms, the appearance, the delivery. When you watch Del Toro on screen, you can't help but feel as though this is all him acting in the moment, exactly how he would behave if he were in the shoes of the character. Which actually brings us back to the debate regarding whether or not Benicio identifies as a method actor, because part of sinking deep into a character to such an extreme degree also involves adopting the character's mentality in place of your own. Some performers can achieve this, but only after going through needlessly harmful things in order to experience the same level of pain as their character. Think Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man, who stayed up for 3 nights in a row, all because his character stayed up for 3 nights. But that's not Del Toro. Del Toro can achieve the same level of depth just via natural ability. And I'll leave you with this last point. Young actors can watch Del Toro's performances and learn that you don't have to go all the way. Not with the performance or with the preparation. Sometimes all it takes is understanding your character just enough that you play it subtle and minimal, while also knowing your character so well that you realise when the right time is to let loose and go all the way with it. Same goes for method preparation, the same case when making a film of a certain genre. That is what distinguishes good artists from great artists, and the latter is exactly where Benicio del Toro fits in.